Hi all, welcome to the session of the How to Master the QA section of the CAT 26. I will be looking at your chat and accordingly I will try to give the response to each and every question which you are going to ask me to master the QA section of CAT. So please post your queries. Hi Harshit, please post your query. So before you ask any question, let me just start with a few advice basically. One thing which I have noticed, in many of the student is primarily, they try to focus on those areas which are not basically heavily tested. For example, if you look at the recent trend, of maybe last 6, 7, 8 years of CAT over here, then the questions on maybe too much on the remainders, and I have seen people investing too much of time on solving difficult questions of remainder. So I have seen people putting a significant amount of time in the areas which are not heavily tested. I totally agree with you on that particular part, that those chapters or those concepts are very intriguing and exciting as well. But at the same time, devoting too much of time and getting a very poor return makes a very poor choice of devoting such time in those type of areas, especially again probability as well. So please shoot your questions. Then suppose if I look at a couple of things over here, in the sense, how do people pick a particular question? So I have seen people have a tendency to pick a one-liner question, and they tend to avoid the question having 3 to 4 lines over here. I think that's a very common mistake, because just looking at one line question, sometimes they can be very tricky, because they don't have enough information and people need to look for a good start over here. But if I look at, suppose, especially the arithmetic question, which may be a 4-line, 5-line, they have all the information. So just going by the length, and if I say those 4 to 5-line questions are basically are longer in length for sure, at the same time they will have enough information, and they both basically go in a story format. So if you follow the story over here in the arithmetic question, especially the 4-5-line problem, you will end up getting the right answers. So again, just by going on the length of the question may not be the best choice to attempt a quant question. Okay, so if I look at, suppose, some question about what is the strategy to score good marks, posted by, Pooja over here, and I will also going to answer the other questions as well. Understand one thing: if you want to, have a good marks in quant, what do you mean by a good marks? So again, people, can have a different expectation. So some of you might be saying a 90 percentile might be a good score, 95, 99. So let's say, for example, I'm talking about a 99 percentile, which you can say can be achieved with the help of a score like 27 to 30. So roughly, let's say 9 to 10 effective correct can lead to a 99, percentile. Again, it could go here and there, but you can definitely achieve a 99 with the help of around 9 to 10 effective question correct. Now that simply mean one thing, attempting around maybe 10 odd right out of 22, assuming that you have accuracy of 100%. And if you look at the bright part, that means you can afford to let go of the 10 to 12 questions as well. So even if I think about the scenario where someone, let's say, possibly make a one mistake, so maybe a 10 right and one wrong can also possibly lead to a 99 kind of percentile. So how do that, let's say, score of 29, 30 can be achieved by most of you? And the simple answer would be definitely it has to be a good strategy of which question you are going to pick. So we normally divide, let's say, question into three broad category. One you can say are easy, medium and difficult. We call, let's say, in terms of a type A, type B and a type C. So what are, let's say, type A question? Type A are those questions once you read them, you basically know the entire path on how to solve those questions. You understood the question, you understood what has been asked for, and you also possibly know the route or the path to be followed to go from the input to the output. And then let's say comes like type C, which I would say are the most difficult one, where you don't have any clue, let's say, what has been asked, what type of concept or the formula basically have been tested. You don't have much clue about it, and those are the difficult one which ideally should be left alone in the exam condition. Now the tricky part basically are the type B, and I have seen that people are able to identify the type A and type C very easily, because for type A people will invest their time. For type C, let's say, people are going to leave that particular question in a very short span of time, and both are basically a good choice to make, attempting a type A and letting go of, let's say, type C. But the main difficulty happens especially in the type B, where you feel, the word is you feel that, okay, I can solve it, I can possibly solve it, and you are not very confident. And what happens is, in those type B question, you end up wasting a lot of time, and that, let's say, limits some of the people to achieve their required potential. So solve all the A's, and then you, let's say, go with the B's, which are the lower B's, and let's say try to leave the higher B's over here. So how much time you devote in those, let's say, type B problem basically will decide whether you are going to get a 99 or the higher 19 percentile in the CAT section. Now coming to how to achieve that, if you look at, there are three components to it. So one basically is going to be a strong concept understanding. So whether someone understands the entire, let's say, concept of arithmetic, algebra, and then maybe you can move on to geometry, numbers, and let's say at the same time your modern math as well. So conceptual understanding is going to be one of the key element. Along with it, how good are you in the speed? So you might say, why speed? If I want to solve only 10 odd question, why speed basically is important? And the simple answer to you basically will be from my side that yes, nobody in CAD basically will be asking you about kindly multiply, kindly do a square, kindly add two numbers. But understand all this addition, multiplication, division, converting a fraction to percentage are going to be a core element when you are going to solve any question, because these are going to be applied: addition, subtraction, dealing with fractions, dealing with multiplication, square, square root, all those are going to be part of any problem you talk about, let's say, in quant. So speed definitely is going to give you edge over the others. As I told you, conceptual understanding and your speed are the two things. Now, what I have seen, the most bigger challenge, let's say, in the student is whenever they, let's say, complete a particular chapter, they look at the class notes, they look at the class recording, and after that they start solving the chapter. Now, once you start solving the chapter, what happens is we primarily focus on solving one simple question. Or let's say we have 20 questions and I say I was able to solve all 20 questions and I feel my target has been achieved, and we move on. But the problem over here is that we never, let's say, try to bother about, do you have a better solution? Can there be a better method to solve a particular question? We never ask those things because we are in a rush to complete. Okay, I have solved 20 questions, but have we solved those 20 questions properly? Have I, let's say, able to find out a better method of solving those questions? If you don't do that, maybe, let's say, we are not doing enough over here. So again, a question from Vignesh: how to approach quant for one who is strong in quant and to maximize the score? So I've answered that particular question, Vignesh. In case let's say you are strong in quant, you have a good solid foundation, you have a good speed as well. So for you, it has to be to look for the multiple approaches. So don't settle for only the longer method. It's perfectly fine. Your first target has to be to solve the question, and let's say yes, by all the means you are free to use a longer method, the conventional method, to crack the problem. But once you do that, maybe it's time for you to spend another 2-3 minutes to think, can I think about some pattern, is one thing. Can this question be done with the help of, let's say, options elimination? Then you can possibly ask yourself, was there a need to take a variable in this particular question? The question ultimately asks you about the ratio. So can I look at the certain numbers? For example, if I look at, there was something like a gain percent or a percentage increase of 16.66% was given to you. So over here, should I take the number 100 or should I take the number 600? What is going to be better over here? So I'm saying you should look for different approaches, different better numbers which can make your life much easier, or can I think them in a very simplified format, is going to be the essential part to crack the problem. And that's where when you saw, let's say, IMS study material, if you look at our video solution, we always, let's say, try to provide multiple approaches. So for every problem, you are going to see minimum, let's say, 2 approaches for nearly each and every problem, and that basically broadens your horizon. Understand, you are definitely going to encounter some problem which you might say was very difficult. I totally agree, that was difficult when you are seeing it for the first time. But once you watch the solution and once you understand the way to solve those kinds of problem, anything of the same kind when comes to you in the exam condition, you are in a better position to deal with it. I hope that answers, Vignesh. Okay, so someone, let's say, asked about what are the important topic to devote max time based on the past 5 to 6 year pattern. So understand, Neha, if I look at the areas, so first of all, the two most important areas are going to be arithmetic and, let's say, algebra, and both of them basically I can say are now you can say arithmetic has slightly more edge over algebra, but still if I combine both of them, you can definitely expect roughly 14 to 15 questions. Now if I look at arithmetic, now that is one area where I say everyone, be it an engineer or be it a non-engineer, have an edge. Reason being, all of us have studied those chapters in the school. Everyone has math, let's say, till class 9th or 10th. From 6th to 10th, you have been exposed to all those chapters. So it's just like maybe revising or, let's say, revisiting those topics maybe after a gap of 2 years, after a gap of 3 years or 4 years for most of you over here. Now understand, if I talk about arithmetic, understand arithmetic, I will divide them under two, let's say, part. One is going to be the core element and the other part basically is going to be the application based. When I say core of arithmetic, I would say there are three broad areas. One is going to be your percentage, is the one core element of arithmetic. Second is going to be ratios, and the third basically is going to be averages. So percentage, ratio, and then averages are the core element. So if someone want to be good in, let's say, arithmetic, these three have to be really strong. Now, moment suppose someone have a good understanding about percentage, believe me, they are going to have a, let's say, simple, you can say, cakewalk, let's say, time whenever they're going to solve something on SICI and profit and loss, because those chapters are nothing but application of what you have understood in percentage. Similarly, if someone understands the concept of averages and weighted average, they are going to have a very good understanding as far as the application of those chapters are concerned, namely, you can say, mixtures and alligation. And in case suppose someone understands the concept of ratio, they are also going to help you very much, let's say, in the context of partnership, variation, and so on. And moment, let's say, you understand this particular chapter, your chapters like time and work and TSD, which are going to be nothing but combining all the application which you have learned from the previous chapter, involving the concept of variation, ratios, and, let's say, percentages over here. Now, when it comes to the algebra topic, maybe many of you are very much scared about algebra because it involves the term x over here. And Understand one thing, in the context of algebra, people are slightly comfortable as far as the linear equations are concerned, but whenever let's say topic moves to quadratic, which I would say is very very important, because whenever you combine algebra with graph, so understanding of all the quadratic, understanding a linear equation involving x and y with graph and so on is going to be a very very deadly combination. If you combine both of them, your understanding of algebra is going to be greatly enhanced. But understand, as I told you, I am going to prefer first of all area algebra, arithmetic over algebra, as arithmetic is mostly going to be having a story. Just follow the story properly, try to let's say convert English to math, and you are going to be in a safe hand as far as arithmetic is concerned. So someone asking about self preparation, what is going to be the important part? So Harshit, understand, the bigger thing is, if someone says to me, sir, I am solving for let's say 10 hours on a Sunday, vis-a-vis someone basically saying that I'm solving let's say a quant, maybe every day I'm spending maybe 1 to 1.5 hours. So someone who is more consistent is going to be let's say giving you more productive result. So doing it once in a while is not going to be a good thing. Yes, definitely I can agree that you have let's say your work commitment, you let's say might have your college, you might have exam on the weekdays, so yes, spending slightly more time on weekend basically will make more sense. But what I would like is more consistent let's say practice every day is going to be more beneficial than spending let's say too much of time on just one day. DILR daily target. So Mahesh, this is primarily for the QA section, but still if you ask me at this particular stage, since we are in the let's say early February and we still have let's say good around 10 odd months to go over here, that roughly translate to a good 300 days, at least 2 sets a day is going to be a good benchmark to start with. Okay, so there is a query regarding a person having a difficulty in understanding the language of the question, and it takes 15 seconds to read a quite a big question. Then to understand the question, it might take 1 minute and then carry on. See, if I look at Anuran over here, so it's perfectly fine. See at the start, see if you are starting your preparation, maybe understand one thing of mocks. The simkets are very very important tool, because they are going to give you a let's say fair bit of idea where are you possibly going to land up. But that is going to start let's say in the month of April. So maybe if I say it's your initial days which you're preparing, so maybe in the initial part your focus should not be on how much time are you devoting on each and every question. So maybe I will not going to keep any clock of let's say I'm spending 5 minutes in a question, or a 6 minute, or a 10 minute for that matter. So initially your idea basically is to build those concepts, to visit as many different type of questions which are going to be tested, and not to worry on let's say spending 15 seconds in reading a question, or let's say 1 minute in understanding the question. So maybe till the month of April, or maybe also let's say till the month of May, I'm not really very much concerned, as long as you are doing a good amount of practice, are able to solve a problem without let's say focusing on the time limit. That answers the questions of Anuran. I would request people to kindly focus on the question pertaining to the quant section for today's session. We are going to keep sessions specifically, let's say for DILR, also for VARC as well. Okay, someone asked about with what speed should we be solving each and every question. So understand, Weber, if I give you my example, I am nearly able to solve all the questions in the CAT. Sometime, let's say not all of them, but maybe I'm able to attempt a good 20, 21 odd questions, sometime 22 as well. So that basically means roughly close to less than 2 minutes. Now, if I talk about average time is roughly 2 minutes, it doesn't mean I'm spending the same time in each and every questions. So what you can do is you can let's say have a rough benchmark, let's say in terms of when you talk about a level A kind of question, For example, if I give you one simple example over here from geometry, I gave you radius of a circle is 7 centimeter. Find out the area of the circle. Now this happens to be one of the very simplest question, because ultimately I'm asking you something to find out area, which is pi r square, where pi is a constant, a known value, and r was given to you. So this type of problem, which is going to be very straightforward, maybe I am saying maybe you can make it slightly more complex as well, but still a very easy question, type A question, you should be able to do in 1 minute or maybe sometime 1.5 minutes for sure. So again, are you going to get all those questions as type A? The answer might be no. But out of maybe a good 25, 22 questions, you might get 4 to 5 questions which are going to be of this nature. And the idea will be that these are the free hit, and you should try to grab those 3 marks as soon as possible. So a type A question definitely has to be under 2 minutes. Again, I'm saying at the very start, I'm not very concerned, but over the period of time, once you become better and better by, let's say, looking at all the chapters, by knowing all the, let's say, areas, you will be definitely be able to solve few questions in, let's say, 1.5 minutes. Now, whenever, let's say, type B kind of questions are there, which is where I'm not having a very clear cut idea about how to proceed, the length of the question seems to be slightly longer and so on, maybe I would say something like a 3 to 4 minute could be a good benchmark to start with. And then gradually that time has to be coming down to 2 to 3 minutes. And again, the type C question, which I would say are very extremely difficult, ideally they should be left alone in the exam condition, but yes, when I'm practicing them, they might take, let's say, good 5 to 6 minutes, and those can be, let's say, brought down to something like a 4 minute or maybe 3.5 minute as you, let's say, progress and move closer to CAT. Okay, someone asked, Mahesh asked in QA, what the take for geometry and modern math topic. So understand, geometry, if I look at, will require a good amount of visualization. Now I've seen, let's say, even good students struggling with geometry, and the possible reason which I feel is that they just go and try to memorize the theorem. So I would say geometry is more about understanding and visualization, and let's say less of memorizing the formula or the theorem over there. So one advice, if people want to become good in geometry, maybe to try and, let's say, prove the results. Prove the result of most of them, like, let's say, for example, Apollonius theorem, to know, let's say, area is equals to ABC by 4R. If you, let's say, try to prove the result, knowing congruency, knowing similarity, they are going to help you in a great deal. The issue with memorizing is that in case, let's say, I have spent maybe 1 month in geometry, I was able to solve each and every questions properly, but only by memorizing the formulas. The thing will be, the formula doesn't stay in the mind for a too long of a period. So that is the concern. Let's say, as far as geometry is concerned, we have n number of theorems, n number of properties. If you, let's say, try to understand the geometry in great detail, then you would be able to remember those theorem and the, let's say, concepts in a more detailed manner, and that stays with you for a long time. Now, coming to the concept of modern math. So in modern math, we include the topic like a PNC and probability. In the recent year, we are not seeing a great deal of questions on PNC and probability being tested. Probability I've never seen, let's say, in CAT for the last, you can say, 20 plus years. I've never seen some on probability, but PNC definitely a big yes. But again, to what extent? PNC, understand, is huge. People can devote, let's say, one entire year, and they can still learn PNC. As a mentor who was in the industry for nearly 2 decades, even, let's say, I keep on learning PNC till today as well. So it depends on what type of learning, till what particular stage, to what particular level you want to master in, let's say, PNC is very important. So I would say, as a CAT aspirant who, let's say, is going to be happy by getting a 99 percentile also, I would say maybe having a good understanding of the basic formulas like AND rule, OR rule, which you know as principle of counting, knowing the basic NCR, NPR formula, and the normal standard cases are going to be more than sufficient. Don't waste your time in solving too complex a problem of, I'm giving one example, distribution of, let's say, distinct object identical group. distribution of identical object, identical group, distribution of distinct object, distinct group with condition. So don't try to, let's say, go into too much of let's say this, because it will end up taking too much of time and not leading to a good amount of return. But yes, knowing, let's say, the important concept in PNC are going to be very, very relevant. If someone asks me, should I leave PNC at the start? My answer would be no, because sometimes you can be deeply hurt, because we have seen over the year that sometimes there might be only one sum or maybe two sum of PNC being tested in the case of quant, but we have seen a entire DI set has come, let's say, in quant testing the concept of PNC. So if it might not hurt you in quant, it can badly, let's say, hurt you in DILR. And you don't want, let's say, to say, okay, I should have at least seen the formula. At least I should have known what is the meaning of NCR, NPR, and so on like that. Yes, Harshit, to answer your question, it's not about Hindi medium. See, again, I am also from a Hindi medium background, so nothing to be ashamed about it. Please try to read as much as possible. It will have a good understanding, and moment, let's say, you start relating those, let's say, sentence, because in quant you are not going to find fancy statements over there. Those statements are going to be same, let's say, for you or from someone, let's say, who belong to a English medium background. So nothing to be worried on that particular front. Okay, someone asks what basic knowledge or like what things should we know before we start solving a quant. So yes, if someone asks me tables, square, multiplication, these are going to be a very, very essential let's say component to become good in quant, because you are going to need those, let's say, things. If someone asks me, sir, we do have calculator, so what's the need of, let's say, knowing the squares, knowing the multiplication? Understand the kind of calci which is given to you is the on-screen calculator. And it's not a good idea, let's say, to use the calci every now and then, even, let's say, for simple addition, simple multiplication. Yes, if you ask me, sir, have you used the calci in the exam? And my answer would be yes. Probably, let's say, if I have to find out something like a 1.02 raised to 5, and I might take too much of time by doing it on my own way, definitely maybe in the last particular step I should take the help of calci. So yes, you can use the calci for sure, but for every basic multiplication, because a question will involve multiple steps where you already must have done some multiplication, division, fraction to percentage, and vice versa. So all those things are going to be very, very, I would say, prerequisite to start solving your quant section. And maybe devoting a good week or 2 weeks in the speed math domain can be really helpful. Okay, someone asked a very interesting question. So when should we start? It should be taking mocks and not giving mocks, because IMS give you mock and you take the mocks. Fair enough. So Weber, the thing is that you should ideally start taking the mocks whenever they are, let's say, open in a particular window. I have seen the biggest mistake happens when people say, let me first of all complete my syllabus. Let me first of all solve on my own. Even though the classes might have covered the module 1, 2, 3, 4, but you people, let's say, keep on, let's say, waiting, saying, let me complete, let me solve X number of chapters, let me complete module number 1, 2, 3, 4 comfortably, and then I'm going to take the mock. That's not a good idea, because the answer would be you are never ready. Even let's say you are doing module 1, 2, 3, 4 completely, then what about if I say it is the month of October and you are, let's say, just 50 days, 60 days away from the, let's say, CAT, and the thing will be they are going to put you under tremendous pressure. So always start taking the mock, because our first mock is going to begin, let's say, in the month of April, and understand in the initial, let's say, SimCat 1 from SimCat 2, we might have a gap of 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So you have ample time, because SimCat are the biggest tool which improves your scores. They are the biggest learning element which is going to be, so you will come to know what good you have done in a particular mock, what you could have done better, and all those things basically is going to come only by taking the mocks. And start taking the mocks as early as possible. Understand one thing, if you might say, sir, I only have done module number 1, module number 2 of IMS course material. What does that mean? That translate to you have done entire arithmetic? you have done the basics of numbers, and you also have done, let's say, most of the algebra. Now, if I know that I have only done module 1, module number 2, I will not going to put, let's say, pressure to myself on geometry and let's say on area like, let's say, modern math for that matter. So maybe the expectation from my side could be slightly lower in the initial couple of mocks before I do entire module. That is the way to look at it. And understand one thing, what is going to happen if the scores are slightly on the lower side? If I have scored, let's say, a total of 40, total of 50 among the overall quant, DILR quant put together, it's perfectly fine. It just tell you that we need to step up. We need to look at the areas of concern. It will tell me which particular areas I'm good at, which areas I'm doing bad at, and accordingly I can devise my strategy where to devote my time in the upcoming 1 week, 2 week or 3 week. That is what you have to do. And you have to find out what type of error are we making. So you can classify the error in terms of conceptual error. For the formula, the question was about circle. I applied the formula for the triangle. Conceptual error. Sometime I have seen people writing 6 as 9, 7 as 5 by doing a, let's say, silly errors. So whether the errors are basically are silly in natures. To identify the errors, whether they are conceptual error, you have misread the problem. So you were in a hurry and you have not looked at which of the following is true, which of the following is not true. So you have not paid the attention to the word not over here, and that led to, let's say, a wrong answer. Identify the error: casual, silly, calculation error, or maybe a conceptual error. And accordingly, each of them are going to have a different way to rectify. So I have answered the question regarding the mocks. So you should take them, let's say, in the starting from the month of April. Percentage of geometry question asked in the exam. So understand, you can expect possibly 3 to 4 questions, and that will translate to maybe, I would say, 15% of the entire paper could be of geometry. If I look at 2018 or let's say before, I have seen more number of questions of geometry. So at that time, your arithmetic and let's say geometry was a key element, but recent year we are seeing a spike in the arithmetic, obviously was the highest, and algebra. Geometry, maybe I would say 2 to 3, sometime 4 also, depending on the slot, can appear. So if you look at for practice purpose, IMS books basically are good enough. If you look at IMS books are going to give you the class exercise. Along with that, you have the practice exercise. You have the benchmarking test, and you are going to have a good number of 40 odd mocks, which include both the proctored ones and the, let's say, take home mocks. You have a good repository, or let's say, of the recent year CAT paper. So from CAT 17, when the paper was, let's say, made available on the public domain. So from CAT 17 till CAT 18, roughly 9-year papers are available. In the before COVID area, let's say era, you can say every year we used to have 2 slots, and post that we started to have, let's say, 3 papers. So a good number of, you can say, mocks paper are also going to be available. Good 25 odd mocks basically are going to be, actual test paper also are available, and the quality definitely is going to be very, very high. Most important topic in arithmetic and algebra, as I told you, you need to be super good in percentage, ratios, and let's say your averages. So if you understand this 3 well, you are going to have a easy, let's say, as I told you, easy, let's say, path to solve questions on profit and loss, SICI, and your mixture, alligation, and partnership. So please note, one can't be good in TSD and let's say time and work unless you have a good solid knowledge of percentage, ratios, and let's say variations. As I told, the percentage, I told roughly 3 odd questions. So if you do a 3 by 22, you can definitely find that number. As I told, it's roughly 15%. You can say 15 to 20. As I told, the number could be 4 as well in some years. There's no fixed number of question from each of the areas. They are going to vary from year to year. Any question which I missed out? Someone asked how to manage both the topic taught in the class and those that are taught later, how to prepare. So understand, for me, let's say we know the entire schedule for a particular month. So again, you might, let's say, have a class 4 days a week or 5 days a week, depending on what particular, let's say, course you have taken, a focused version or the extensive version. Again, over here you have to come prepared with the pre-class videos. If you watch the concept video or the pre-class video, you will have a better understanding of what is going to be, let's say, thrown at you in the class. So once that class basically is over, you have seen the concept, you have understood the concept, nearly all the questions have been solved to you. So maybe it's a good time to immediately solve the question from the practice exercise of that particular chapter. So maybe you might want to solve half of them, if not all, but at least be, let's say, in sync with what is going on in the class. If you delay, let's say, too much, for example, if I'm teaching you percentage today and you start solving those sums, let's say after 1 month or maybe after 2 months, there will be a huge gap and the things are going to get piled up, and you will start having a disconnect between what is going on in the class and what you are, let's say, approaching. So don't delay too much. Yes, it's sometimes perfectly fine to solve the sum partially, and maybe after a 1 month you may want to solve the remaining 10 odd questions. Okay, so I can see some question, Hitesh asking that if I solve the sum from the class exercise, they are very much solvable, but it takes a lot of effort to solve the sums of the benchmarking. So that is the whole purpose. Understand, do you think a teacher basically should solve only the difficult sum in the class? And the answer would be no. The progression has to, let's say, go from the easy to set the foundation and then, let's say, to a higher level. So once you go to the benchmarking test, it again comprises of both the easy, medium and the difficult question. The idea is that once you start solving, because the benchmarking is acting as a test, whether you understand the concept well, are you able to find out the hidden concept which have been tested in the question, and accordingly try to devise a strategy. See, again, you don't have to go in a proper sequential manner, that you have to move from question number 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and you have to spend time in each and every question. It's a test. So after all, you have to devote the time only in the sum where you feel confident and you, let's say, have an idea about how to go about it. So that is the answer for Hitesh's question. Chance of work pipe and system, definitely Sakshi. So work pipe system is one of the most easiest chapter, and again understand that if you want to be good in this particular chapter, you need to understand variation, ratio, percentage, at the same time LCM. So I have seen people struggling because the best possible method to solve the sums of time and work or the work pipe system is with the LCM. So whenever we assume total work as the LCM of the numbers given, we are able to find out the rate of work, which you can say amount of work done per day, per hour, come out to be integer numbers. And then it becomes very straightforward, because dealing with integer is much convenient than dealing with fractions and so on. But what about if I say you are taking too much of time in finding out the LCM? That's why I told you, if you want to be good in time in work, you should be equally good in finding out the LCM of the numbers in a faster manner and not by a very regular, let's say, conventional approaches. So if someone says what is going to be a good tip for self preparation, so understand what I can possibly do is, I might say I'm going to give myself 1 week, let's say, for one particular chapter. And if I say day 1 to day 7, or maybe day 1 to day number 5, my day number 1 basically can go into just understanding that chapter really well by knowing all the relevant formula, all the relevant examples, all the relevant concepts which are going to be part of that particular. So for example, if I look at percentages, then I need to understand maybe every fraction like 1 by 2, 1 by 3, all the way up to 1 by 20 or maybe 1 by 25 in terms of percentage. So moment I can see a particular fraction, I can say it corresponds to so and so percentage. And Vice versa, if I see a particular percentage, can, let's say, my mind reflect and tell me that this percentage means so and so fraction? That is very, very important. Then do I understand the formula of successive percentage increase, percentage decrease? Do I have any formula? Now, what are the limitation of that formula? At the same time, do I understand multiplying factor? Whenever someone says a 20 percentage increase, does it mean a multiplying factor of 1.2 or a 6 by 5? If I say a drop of 14.28%, it means a drop of 1 by 7, leading to a multiplying factor of, one can say, 6 by 7. Now, how you quickly arrive at those numbers 6 by 7, 6 by 5, which I have done 1 plus 1 by 5, I did 1 minus 1 by 7. So if you are good in those aspects, so I am saying day number 1 can go into learning all these things, putting everything basically in the mind, and then maybe looking at some solved examples. And then my, let's say, day 2, day 3 can go into solving the sums from the class exercise. Then maybe moving on, let's say, another 2 days to solve some more questions on that particular chapter. And then maybe, let's say, I want to test my benchmark by participating in the benchmarking test in solving and making those area become really, really strong. So maybe a good 5 to 7 days if you are able to provide in a single chapter and going in a proper manner. Again, please note, without understanding a single chapter, without knowing what are the relevant formula in this particular chapter, if I just go and solve a, let's say, chapter, the issue would be you will keep on referring to the formula for every question, and that's not a good idea. So day number 1, give yourself, understand each and everything, maybe try to, let's say, do a proper, let's say, revise or whatever you want to do it, but you should know each and every, let's say, formula. At the same time, know the limitation of those formulas. That is going to help you a lot. Sarthak, to answer your query. So maybe every day, if, as I told you, Sarthak, maybe a good around 10 odd questions, if I am able to solve a quant, it's a good enough, let's say, task. Again, note that number 10 is just a quantity which can vary from person to person. So someone who is, let's say, working and maybe spending 12 hours in the office and then another 1 or 2 hours in the commute, they may, let's say, tend to do a bit less. And for them, 10 basically is going to be a very good number. Now, someone, let's say, who might have done their graduation already and they're preparing completely on, let's say, CAT, they can tend to solve more number of questions. At the same time, they can devote more time in the DILR and quant as well, along with, let's say, VRC for everyday basis. Yes, definitely the ABC approach has to be applied for every test you take. Because let's see again, for example, as I just told you what is A, B and C, just let's say by looking at how Kohli plays or Rohit Sharma, let's say, plays, or Surya plays the, let's say, shot, I can't, let's say, become the same person. So whenever, let's say, you look at a benchmarking test, whenever you will take the mock, as I told you, you might have classified a particular sum as, let's say, type C initially. But then when you look at the solution, it appears to be very, very straightforward with the manner I am solving, or the other mentor basically might be solving in the video solution. Now you have learned the trick, and IMS give the chance for you to apply, to use the trick in by solving a replica AI based question. So now the same type of sum have been thrown at you, and see whether the same method, the new method taught by us, can be applied by you yourself or not. So ABC basically need to be applied in every sum you take, be it benchmarking or be it, let's say, a sum, let's say, from the practice exercise. You should be start judging a particular question difficulty, easy, medium, difficult. It will come naturally, but Sarthak, I would say maybe for the initial 2-3 week, try to incorporate that. Maybe let's say for the next 3 week or maybe 4 week for that matter, practice randomly, let's say 5-10 questions of, let's say, different type. Be it squares, square root, cube root, multiplication of a 2 by 2 digit number, 3 digit numbers, and so on like this. But don't overdo it. Let's say spending 4-5 hours daily basis. Just maybe half an hour is going to be good enough for the next, let's say, 1 month or so. If I missed any question, you can just ping it again. No further queries. Should I end then? Okay. Sarthak, that answer basically can vary depending on the level of preparation which you have done. Are you preparing, let's say, since last 2 months, 4 months, 5 months, etc. Let's say can decide on that number. So anything, let's say, above a score of 60 plus or a 70 plus in a pre-SEMCAT will be counted as a good score as a starter. It is asking about target CAT score for the CA freshers. So see, again, understand that different IIMs, let's say, give a weightage to the people who have degree like CA, CAs, or let's say even CFA these days. So again, I would say anyone, let's say even someone talking about I have a category to support me in terms of NC, OBC, SC, ST, and so on. Your effort should not decrease based on what you have. So for you, I would say definitely I for 99 plus. If you get 99 plus, there's a huge chance of you getting all the calls over here. So maybe for me, let me tell you my example. If I'm going to take the CAT, the one goal which I have in quant is or DI is to get 100 percentile. That is the mindset basically which I go for any exam. So you should also, let's say, go and aim for as many as possible. Don't limit yourself. I will give you one example. I think in CAT 17 the paper basically tend to be slightly on the easier side, and normally in the previous year getting a maybe 11 12 questions right will give you a decent percentile. One of my student, let's say a non-engineer student, was able to solve around 11 to 12 questions, then stopped. She didn't attempt any further, thinking it can go wrong as well, and she was able to get all those 11 right and so on. The percentile was moderate, it was not really bad, but there was a chance. Why would you want to stop yourself when the mentor might have told you so and so score can fetch you a so and so percentile? If the paper was easy and you were able to reach that particular score with, let's say, 10 more minutes to go for the kill. Go for, let's say, another 3 to 4 questions in those 10 minutes as well. So never settle, huh? So my word has to be go for the kill. Maybe you can eye for a score of 130 plus, 140 plus. If you get a 140 plus, definitely you are inching towards the 100 percentile overall. Hitesh. Okay, someone saying should we practice something from, let's say, LOD1 which are not CAT relevant? The answer is yes. So see, in case you feel LOD1 is very simple and it's not very relevant, my thing will be how can I make, let's say, LOD1, let's say, tougher? And the answer would be if you give me any type A question, most likely I can solve the question without touching pen paper. So maybe if I want to make things difficult for myself, I want to make a LOD1 question look like LOD2, then please try. Again, the word is try to attempt that question without writing anything. And that way you are making that question slightly more challenging. In the initial, let's say, phase, you may, let's say, find it to be challenging, and you may say, sir, out of 10 LOD1 question, I was able to solve only 3 of them orally. But understand one thing, without trying this particular activity, you were not able to solve anything orally. If you are able to solve 3 questions orally, which were LOD1 questions, it means it's a great achievement. And that is what I do whenever a straightforward question comes up. I tend to solve, let's say, under maybe you can say 30-second, 25-second as well, by not touching even pen paper. And that's where the advantage basically comes up. Any person in cricket as well who is scoring a 80 or 90, do you think he is scoring a 6 or 4 in every ball? The answer is no. But maybe let's say 5-6 or 7-6 basically would mean 5 ball 30 runs. That's what I do. Let's say whenever a type A question comes up, kill it. That's the idea. See, definitely you have to think about where you can, let's say, look at module by module. So module 1 and module 2 are very, very important. They will set the foundation for both the arithmetic and the algebra domain. Yes, maybe you want to keep some element as a reviser for the later month, but at least you should do the practice exercise after the class exercise of each and every module. Sarthak. One subject a day, Neha, I think would be slightly more difficult. You won't be able to do justice, let's say, to one subject. Okay, you're saying one subject a day. Ideally, see, I am someone who will recommend if you have time, do everything, let's say, on a single day. So maybe I would be someone who might want to solve at least one RC a day. Now, understand one thing, if I talk about solving one RC a day, how much time it might take? It's a good time to say a 10 odd minute could be a good time for someone to solve one RC. And then maybe once you solve it, it's also a good idea to review your RC, whether the answer came out to be right, wrong, why it came out to be right, why it came out to be wrong. Is my, let's say, line of thought aligned with what has been given to in the text of solution? So if I talk about solving one RC, which is solving plus review, may take, let's say, close to 20 odd minutes. So 20 minutes will be good enough time, let's say, to practice one RC set. Again, if I talk about DILR, solving one DI set, which is, I would say, is easy to moderate, people can solve in 10 to 12 minutes. Again, sometime 15 as well. If I talk about easy to moderate set, 10 to 15, sometime less as well. Again, reviewing the same may take another 10-15 minutes. So one DI set on the upper hand will take, let's say, half an hour. So maybe if I am someone who may want to solve, let's say, all the three subjects, half an hour can go to verbal, half an hour basically can go to DILR, and maybe I can give at least 1 hour or 1.5 hours in a quant domain. That basically would mean roughly devoting 2.5 hours, and I'm able to touch each and every aspect, which is RC along with DILR and also the quant section. Again, if you have more time, definitely we can combine one RC along with some VA questions. I can think about one DI set, one LR set, and maybe let's say I can spend 2.5 hours of quant. That way, maybe I'm talking about something like a close to 4 hours period. So that can depend on the person availability of time. It's a good idea. Let's say, as I told you, some of the chapters are core subjects. So percentage and let's say ratios and let's say weighted average. Maybe you want to solve LOD1 along with LOD2 to become master in that, and then you will find the other chapters to be slightly on the easier side. Newspaper, Hitesh, definitely it's recommended. If you read newspaper, you are going to be updated, because many of the exam also test on the current affairs. If you read them, you will know what is going on in the country, and it is also going to be very, very helpful when you will go for the interview. Understand, you have not read the paper regularly. Suddenly you had a good cat, your result came nice, and maybe in the month of, let's say, February, you have your IM interview being placed. Now, do you think in just 2 weeks or 3 weeks you will be able to know all the news? Because the news which they will ask you can possibly from the recent 1 month, recent 6 month, recent 1 year as well. And again, the most important one, if someone who read newspaper regularly will, let's say, find, let's say, easy to answer those current affair based questions, and you can have a good discussion with your interviewer. All right. Again, A college basically being good or bad depends on your profile as well. The SIBM Bangalore basically happens to be a decent college. Again, you should know that what is the expectation from that particular college and does it fulfill your need? That is going to be an important answer. I have spoken about the same, what is the ideal schedule. So let's say for someone who may be able to devote close to 2.5 to 3 hours on daily basis, may look for solving one RC, then they can solve at least one to two DILR set, and then again they can devote another maybe 1.5 to 2 hour in a quant section. I think your profile is basically decent one for NMAT, for IFMR. So you can expect questions on the recent share market downfall as well. You can be expected to know some of your viewpoint regarding the recent crash of the gold and the silver market, and even what has led to the price movement of the copper after the recent increase in the gold and silver prices. I think now the questions are moving to some other areas. So fine, that will be it from my side. I hope I was able to answer most of the queries. If I was not able to, please, I'm really sorry for the one or two odd questions. Thank you, people. Any further queries, if you have any, we will again conduct some AMA more session basically every weekend, every week on Friday. So we will again get connected to have more answers on DILR and the preparation front. Thank you so much.